whoever it is, either Maynard 1 or Maynard 2, I'll call them, urges somebody to roll down the window. You get that sometimes. It's probably a lactose intolerance thing. Very unfortunate, but hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name's John. His name is Andy. All together now. 1, 2, 3. Keep your mind on your driving. Keep your hands on the wheel. Keep your snoopy eyes on the road ahead. More on that later. I have to confess, I used to have that on 7-inch. It was given to me by an elderly relative, but yeah. Wow. Anyway, more on that later. So, Andy, what wonderful ditty have you got for us today?
Well, perfectly in line with the lyrics you just quoted there. This song kind of has something to do with, or an allusion to, kind of this life on the road, or sort of this, in a vehicle type theme I'm gonna run with here based on those lyrics. It is by a band that is super polarizing with you, I know. And that is the band is the Deftones. Now, I know that you've been exposed to a minimal amount of their work and have not been the biggest fan. Two
Two albums.
two albums, cover to cover. You listen to both of them? Oh, wow. Okay, that's more than I thought. That's fair then. Okay. Well, then I'm really going to push the boundaries here and maybe the limits of what you find acceptable from a music standpoint by throwing you this track by them called Passenger, which is one of my all-time favorites. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's totally fine. But I wanted to see what you thought of this track in particular and perhaps easing you into it. It does feature co-vocals by a one Maynard James Keenan, who we've listened to now all of his projects on the channel. We've done A Perfect Circle, we've done Tool. Did Pussifer feature
Pussifer?
here or
Yeah.
on? It was okay. I wasn't sure if it was
I
into the
think
music.
it was only to the music, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, the song.
Well, I have heard it, yeah.
Yeah, we did by them. So here is the Deftones featuring MJK with their track Passenger. So thank you for being a sport about this. I know you haven't exactly inundated me with the Smiths or Morrissey stuff, which I appreciate.
Hold my beer.
I'll pass. But yes, I would love to hear your thoughts on this track, my friend.
Okay. Well, I like that start. It's got this sort of nebulous, misty feel to it. Things are sort of sliding in and it's almost bubbling away. Yeah, I don't know why, but I get a picture of that. Was it The Exorcist where the priest comes out from the fog with the street light? It's that kind of image. Whatever. And then it's into some guitar and drums. two voices, isn't it? I was about to say how it sounds a little sort of, does sound like Maynard, but sort of tired and drawn out. But the second and fourth line wasn't quite so tired, or it was a bit quicker as well. About a minute. I was going to say, like, the foot Here I Lay sounds like Maynard, but then Still and Breathless, I think was the second line. That sounds like him as well, but it's definitely two, so I don't know which is which. Yeah, they both sound really similar, but they are different. You can definitely tell there is a difference. Interesting. Leather surfaces, dreams and leather. This feels kind of loose, free-falling almost. Call me this time, won't you please? I guess that was, sorry to keep stopping, I guess that was the chorus then, particularly when he says something like roll down the windows. Sorry, childish mind. And someone's dropped one. And then he said, I'm your passenger, I'm passenger at the end of that. So it's a much heavier sound from this, from the verse. Really nice drum fill coming into it. The guitars are more sort of crashing and it's more dramatic, and the vocals are there, but it doesn't change tempo at all. It's still quite a trudging sort of, I mean that in a negative way, but it's that sort of fairly, down tempo. It's just nodding along with trying to inject this drama into it. It's not my kind of sound, to be fair. Trying to work out why, but it's just this particular flavor doesn't do anything for me. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's not terrible. It just doesn't engage me. No, interesting. But yeah, the drums sound great, and the guitars, for all they are, doing a great job, and his vocals are doing a great job. But the whole package together just doesn't work for me. I'm sure it does for countless millions of people. There you go. Cool seats there to cushion your knees. Now to call me, take me around again. Don't pull. It's interesting, sorry. This is going to be like 20 minutes, this reaction. Was this before the chorus and a sort of loose sort of part of the song, and he had these just notes which I thought was like a guitar plinking almost, and again it's here, but there's also something else that sounds a bit more like a chord, and it's like a keyboard, but still has like a metallic sound to it as well. It's really interesting. It's like a sonar blip gone wrong. Yeah. Um, I'm not digging so much. It's like drown sort of, quiet, almost whispered vocals here. There's again, it's what you like and what you don't.
Over the sun, won't you please? Roll the window till this cool night air is curious. Let the whole world look in. Who cares? Who sees what's at night? Throw these misty windows down to catch my breath and then go and go and go. Just drive me home and back again.
That's a really interesting sound. I don't know what was making that. It's reverbing as well.
Here I lay, just like always. Don't let me take me to the end.
Interesting. And all was left was the ghostly echo of a piano. Yeah, that was interesting. That sort of instrumental bit and onwards. There's some really, I know that sort of like riff pause is great. And then what happens is they make the pauses smaller, or either bigger or smaller. In this case, smaller. And then it's like I call it guitar gurning. It's like riff, and then it hits a certain note, riff, it's another note, which is always effective. It's a great thing that's employed in sort of indie alternative music as well. Um, yeah, and there's those really interesting sort of clinking sounds, like a haunted thumb piano. Yeah, very interesting. We got this sort of little bit of a gallop at the end for some reason. Guitars kind of being a bit heavy. Drum guy said, "I've got to get my quota of hits in here," for no reason, then stops, and then it just all that goes out. Yeah, interesting. I would say, guess it's all about context because I quite like Maynard's voice, but it didn't do as much for me. It didn't engage with me as normal here, but it's about context and framing. I thought the drummer did an excellent job. Um, and yeah, it's just not my kind of thing. It didn't really spark anything listening to it. It wasn't terrible, but yeah. No, I'm glad I gave it a go. It's interesting. Um, but yeah, not my bag, baby, as they say. Anyway, we need to find out some more about how this all came about and Mr. MJK's involvement. And I know someone who knows all about it. So let's go back and chop it up with Andy.
All right, so you're back from your little excursion as a passenger, John. What did you think of this track by Deftones?
Okay, so we start with an atmospheric 30 seconds of preamble. Guitar sounds come sliding in off the mist, like they're on a Raddy Grifter or something. They're bubbling and phasing away. Really nice and interesting start, actually. It's like the alternative version of the start of Girls on Film by Duran Duran. I just had to get that in. It's funny. But if you listen to it, you know what I mean. This is like the rocky alternative version of that. Anyway, then the drums cut in through the indefinite with this circular guitar riff riding shotgun. I think there's another guitar. I don't think it's the same guitar. So the guitar's doing that sort of circular riff, and I think it's another guitar. It keeps adding these two-note garnishes at the end of like each bar, which is quite nice. There's real punch to the sound of the bass drum, and also there's a really interesting tuning on the tom that it keeps hitting. It's got a certain thunk to it, or is that talk? It's one of those two words anyway. And it's got a really nice sort of tone to it when it's slapping it away.
I gotta say, since you're on the subject of the drums and they're too like Abe Cunningham is the guy. I've always loved the sound, the pop of his snare too. It's just got a really interesting pop to it. So that goes in line with what you're talking about. But yeah, go ahead, sir.
So some riffs from guitars give off a sense of place or scene, and that's really, you can hear a certain riff, and that's like Paisley Underground, that's Britpop or Manchester or whatever, and for this has a certain bouquet to the riff that's very rich with the promise of tat sleeves and black denim. I mean, it's really fitting in with the imagery of what I would expect. So yeah, that all checks out. As the drums become a bit more expressive and he does start to pepper things, I think I detect a very slight sort of panting way down in the mix.
Yeah.
Crikes, Scooby. Spooky. So just after the minute mark, the singer begins. I had to rewind this, but so I caught it. So here I lay. I have to say, first impressions, the vocals do sound like Maynard, and the vocals are very slow and almost like a resigned quality to them, like I won't say lazy, but sort of tiredness to it, or as I say, resignation or something, where the energy is not quite fully there. And then the next line, still and breathless, is similar, but it's quicker. And so it doesn't seem quite so resigned. And then the sings just like always. And then it hits me. Sings still a lot more. But it's two vocals alternating.
Yeah.
The problem is they both sound like Maynard. One more than the other. So I don't know which is which. But one is and one isn't. So anyway, that's my discovery. And then I catch the words, your passenger. After this, which again clicks with the title, etc. The music then changes from that circular riff and almost trudging beat to this more like, I describe it as like I would say freeform, but almost like a floating platform scenario. It's a lot more gentle and sort of relaxed without this sort of plodding. And there's these odd, pretty notes that keep rising like air bubbles. Yeah, really interesting. On the word please, it then turns into a heavier sound. There's like a sort of riffage that goes through for maybe 2 bars, which I guess is just leading into what launches what I believe and understand is the chorus. And at that point, there's also a really nice drum fill. And then the vocal, whoever it is, either Maynard 1 or Maynard 2, I'll call them, urges somebody to roll down the window. You get that sometimes. It's probably a lactose intolerance thing. Very unfortunate, but so we get double confirmation of the passenger situation. That it's definitely he is his passenger. So yeah, during this chorus, the guitars are really crashing, and to give this sense of drama. And again, the vocals are more sort of urgent. And the really interesting thing is the tempo doesn't change like the beat, so it's still quite slow with this drama. So it's an interesting method of doing it. They don't try and amp it up in terms of like putting in. There is more drum activity, but it's not increasing the tempo. Again, it's just really interesting. And there's like a buzzing effect as well, which again creates some more tension. And there's some of these other noises, which I think are like either keyboard or guitar related, that kind of feed back to that intro where they're a bit more sort of nebulous, and you get the feeling of like slippage in certain bits. Just really interesting texture to it all. So then we drop back into that subtle section, I shall call it, with floating notes. There's some whispered vocals here, and sort of it does come across to me a little bit camp, a bit sort of Rocky Horror. But bless them. Some of these notes, they're really interesting. So they sound like plinks from a guitar. I have to use a sort of onomatopoeia to describe them. And it's almost like the bit above the nut where you go pling, pling sometimes. Yeah. Some of it's a bit like that. And then they sort of develop. There's one that definitely sounds more like a chord than a note. And I likened it to a haunted thumb piano. That's what it sounded like. It's probably just a keyboard effect, and I like the idea of this, someone standing there over a thumb piano going, "The power of Christ compels you." No, but yeah, it's just really those weird notes, really interesting. And again, it's this different sort of texture. Then we go back into the more agricultural riffs. We go to the chorus again. I believe the chorus the second time, somewhere along the line, it changes the words because we don't get that. Put those on your passenger lines again. It goes into something else. I'm not catching a lot of the vocals, obviously. We then get a nice section, which I call riff and pause, from the guitar, which is always pleasing. Stop, stop, and all the time there's these accompanying cymbal splashes, which again are really nice. I think I say this later on in my notes, but the drummer was my favorite out of all the players in this. Yeah. Really, really good drumming. So yeah, the pauses kind of, in my mind, they probably don't, but they seem to narrow down, and then they go into no pauses. Instead, what I call guitar gurns. I think I explained before about the person gurning, making the face. It's they're throwing these interesting shapes. It's a riff, this gurning note. Yeah, Nirvana famously have done it, and loads of others. It's a thing that's was really popular in sort of that alternative pre-grunge and post-grunge sort of music. It's a really nice method, and it's very pleasing whenever you hear it. And then there's also at the end of that sort of passage, there's a lovely staggered drum fill. It's not quite falling down the stairs, but it's almost like the one leg drum or moving around. You're really nice. We go back to plinking guitar noises and haunted thumb piano again. This time there's a lot more spooky reverb on it. And one of the blips sounds like a tormented sonar blip. It's like, bing! Really nice. Again, I love this sort of texture to it. Yeah. So the vocal style from the first verse returns now, seemingly exhausted by all the effort. And he has something like, "Here I lay, just like always," but it's back to that sort of resigned or just exhausted feeling. It's just low energy, basically. We get a repetition of the word "go," and it seems to bounce like a pinball against the guitar plinks, and then a heavier riff comes back in really bizarrely, and you almost get this sort of militaristic drumming. It's just like they're stretching their legs for no apparent reason, and then it just goes away again as a final flourish from the drums. And then as it all fades away, all we're left with is this ghostly echo from that keyboard sound.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's lots of really interesting things in this, and lots of things in this which I did enjoy. I would say overall, I guess it's about context. Maynard's voice here didn't get engaged with me in the same way that it does on Perfect Circle. It's the framing of it, I guess. I would say that I do listen to music which is probably considered heavier than this, and certainly more discordant than this. But the overall flavor, and everything does have a tone or a flavor to, hence genres, whatever. And this kind of flavor just doesn't get my taste buds going. It doesn't engage me as much. It's not really my thing. To give it a good shot. It's not terrible. Some of the Deftones I listened to was terrible. I will say that. But this wasn't terrible. But it didn't engage me. So there's bits of elements I really like, and I said the drummer just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, it was an okay listen. All
right. I'm glad you survived it.
Yeah.
That's right.
The two is this from the album with the little white horse on it?
Yeah, the White Pony. Yeah.
Then I've heard this song before, but it was in 2004 or something.
Oh wow. Okay, because when you had told me the one album that you had heard stuff off of, you didn't describe the artwork for this at all in your description.
There was this one. There's two. I remember it now. Though I was recommended Deftones, and I got this out from the City Library when they used to lend out CDs, and it was that album. And I listened to it, and I was hugely disappointed because it really wasn't my thing at all. And I was not led to believe that they were totally different sound to what they were. Now, if someone had been honest with me and said this is what it sounds like, I'd have probably had more of an open mind. But I was just like, oh, fuck's sake. And then one of the later ones, the one with the two eyes, it's almost like crying. That I really couldn't stomach. To be fair, I had no.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, that really wasn't my palatable to me.
Fair. Yeah, this is one of the few bands that comes out of that, and I think they're misplaced, but that broad brush genre of that late 90s, very early 2000s new metal that I actually really enjoy a lot of their stuff. Not everything, but a lot of their stuff. It's like these guys and Incubus. All the other ones I have no truck for any of their stuff or their sound. But I think the two that are most unlike the genre, but somehow still get painted with that brush, are the ones I gravitate toward, and it is those two aforementioned bands. So, let me get into the Deftones a bit because there's plenty here. They are an American alternative metal band formed in Sacramento, California in 1988. They're formed by frontman Chino Moreno, whose voice you heard in this track. The Here I Lay is his voice, and then Still and Breathless is Maynard, and they sort of just go back and forth, kind of handing over the baton.
Really similar though.
Similar airy voices. Chino almost always.
There's a difference, but it's hard to tell which is which.
And when Chino's not screaming, he almost always sounds post-coital to me. Like you explained it as this exhaustive, it's like it's content, but and it just has this we just got done having a marathon. It's a sex session kind of sound to me, which I think is odd because he definitely, it's really interesting because he's definitely influenced by a lot of the artists that you do gravitate toward, which is what's interesting. You're not liking him so much, but knowing how much bands like the Smiths and Morrissey meant to him growing up and becoming influenced by music. So you could hear a little bit of that in his, but he has I think he, you can hear it, but they don't sound alike, if that makes sense. So yeah, there's Chino Moreno on lead vocals, lead guitarist Stephen Carpenter, drummer Abe Cunningham, with bassist Chi Chang, as well as keyboardist and turntablist Frank Delgado, who joined the band later in 1990. And then, well, no, pardon me. Chi Chang joined in 1990 and Delgado joined in 1999, rounding out the true lineup of the band and many of its years of existence. The band's experimental nature has led some critics to describe them as, and brace yourself here, this is them, not me, the Radiohead of metal. Carpenter created the band's name by combining the hip hop slang term deaf with the suffix tones. The name is also a pun on the term tone deaf. After the lineup was settled in 1993, the band secured a recording contract with Maverick Records and subsequently released their debut album, Adrenaline, in 1995. Extensive touring and word of mouth promotion of the album helped Deftones garner a dedicated fan base. Their second album, Around the Fur, which came out in 1997, brought the band fame among the alternative metal scene and reached chart positions along with its singles. It became the band's first record to receive certification from the RIAA. The band found further success with their third album, White Pony, in 2000, which marked a transition from their earlier, more aggressive sound into a more experimental direction. Its lead single, Change in the House of Flies, is the band's most commercially successful single, and the track Elite won a Grammy for Best Metal Performance. It was also the band's first of 3 albums to be certified platinum in the United States. While the group's critical success continues, sales proved to be lackluster compared to White Pony. Deftones' fifth studio effort, Saturday Night Wrist, in 2006, received similar praise, although the album's production was marred by creative tensions and personal issues within the band, some of which influenced its materials. In 2008, while Deftones were working on an album tentatively titled Eros, Chang was involved in a traffic collision. As a result, he was left in a minimally conscious state until his death in 2013. God, that 5 grueling years as Chi Chang. He died of a cardiac arrest in 2013. After Chang's accident, Deftones halted production on Eros and recruited Quicksand bassist Sergio Vega until his departure in early 2021. The band released the critically praised Diamond Eyes in 2010 and embarked on a triple headline tour with Alice in Chains, more on them later, and Mastodon throughout North America. Their 7th and 8th albums, Koi no Yokan in 2012 and Gore in 2016, respectively, showcased the band's continued experimentation, while their 9th album, Ohms, in 2020, marked a return to the band's heavier sound. Their 10th album, Private Music, was released on August 22nd of 2025, so just a few weeks ago at this point. This track, Passenger, that I had you listen to today, features on the aforementioned critically lauded album, The White Pony. On June 20th, 2000, the band released White Pony. It was recorded at the Record Plant Studio in Sausalito, California, and at the Larrabee Sound Studios in West Hollywood, California. Frank Delgado, now a full-time member of the band, added new elements to the band's music. The Melancholy Teenager, for example, was a departure in style and mood. The album marked a significant growth in the band's sound, incorporating influences from post-hardcore, trip-hop, shoegaze, progressive rock, and post-rock into the alternative metal sound which they had become known for. Moreno later claimed in a 2020 interview that his decision to play rhythm guitar on the album caused tensions to escalate with guitarist Stephen Carpenter during the writing process. Despite the tensions, Moreno and Carpenter found themselves on friendlier terms and found a cohesive songwriting process for most of the album's tracks, with Moreno claiming, "Initially, I don't think the idea was that I was going to actually play on the record even. Then I remember Stefan specifically saying, dude, if you're going to play it in practice, then you're going to play it on the record." And I was like, oh, okay, if that's cool with you. I don't think he was too happy about it, to be honest. Then I do remember us both smiling at each other when we were sitting listening to the track being made, and the fusing of both of our guitars, the sound of it, and the way it was produced. In an interview with the band in an alternative press, they described the recording process of The White Pony. After a break from touring, the band spent 4 months in the studio writing and recording it, the longest amount of time they had dedicated to an album thus far. Moreno said that the majority of the time was spent trying to write songs, and that the writing of Change in the House of Flies was the turning point where the band began working as a cohesive unit. Despite being pressured to release the album sooner, the band decided to take their time. Chang explained, "We didn't feel like we had anything to lose, so we made the record we wanted to make." Marino did not have an overall lyrical theme in mind, but made a conscious decision to bring an element of fantasy into his lyrics. "I basically didn't sing about myself on this record. I made up a lot of storylines and some dialogue, even. I took myself completely out of it and wrote about other things. Once I did that, I was able to sing about anything I wanted to. I could be a lot more general. There's a lot of stuff on this record that people are going to question me about, and I can just remove myself from it. It's not me. I'm writing a story here." Although the band initially did not intend to include guest musicians on the album, it features additional vocals by Maynard James Keenan of Tool, A Perfect Circle, and Pussifer on Passenger, and Rodleen Getzik, simply credited as Rodleen, on the song Knife Party. RX Queen, or sometimes referred to as Drug Queen, also features vocal contributions from the Stone Temple Pilots singer Scott Weiland, though he is uncredited. Weiland brought Moreno to his studio for collaboration, where he would sing along and suggest vocal harmonies. The result was left in the final version of the song, and credit for Weiland's part was never discussed by either party. White Pony debuted at number 3 on the U.S. charts, just behind Britney Spears' "Oops, I Did It Again" and Eminem's "The Marshall Mathers LP." So that's where we were historically when this album came out. Billboard chart with sales of 178,000 copies. Reviews were generally positive, commenting on Moreno's increasing sophistication as a lyricist and the group's experimentalism. AllMusic reviews said that Deftones went soft, but in an impressive way. To twist around its signature punk thrash sound, the album achieved platinum status on July 17, 2002, selling over 1.3 million copies in the US, and as mentioned earlier, earning the band a 2001 Grammy Award for the best performance of the song Elite. Metal Hammer likened the album to a metal version of Radiohead's critically acclaimed OK Computer from 1997. Billboard gave the album 4 out of 5 stars, though it cautioned that the band's continuous inclination toward a bludgeoning experimental sonic attack and Moreno's violent, impressionistic lyrics made the album a tough pill to swallow for most listeners. Similarly, BBC Music praised the album while opining, "The fact that such a progressive, risk-taking LP wasn't celebrated across the board for its gutsy reinventing of a band thought pigeonholed wasn't that surprising, though this is a difficult album." In a favorable review, Alternative Press noted the album's art rock explorations. In 2016, Jonathan Dick of NPR Music retrospectively praised the album as a watershed moment or turning point, not only in regards to the Deftones sound, but also more generally to heavy and experimental music in the new millennium, describing the album as signaling not only a change for the band, but a new trajectory for heavy and experimental music entering the 21st century. Dick especially noted the album's shift into heavy post-rock shoegaze spectrum, and contended that within the span of 5 years from the band's debut album to the release of The White Pony, Deftones had distinguished itself as a band whose sound no longer fit too comfortably under any genre-specific title. Similarly, Mike Diver of Clash magazine asserted that White Pony changed everything, not just for Deftones, but metal as a whole, noting the album's distinct air of progressive rock and its ability to weave electronics into aggressive yet reflective songs. Pitchfork retrospectively noted that White Pony transcended the dubious genre of nu metal by fashioning a truly new form from post-hardcore, industrial, trip-hop, shoegaze, ambient electronics, and synth-pop. Alternative Press ranked White Pony as the second best album of the year 2000, and in their September 2010 issue, placed it in their list of the top 10 most influential albums of 2000. UK rock magazine Kerrang named White Pony their third best album of the year, behind Queens of the Stone Age's Rated R, more on that later, and At the Drive-In's Relationship of Command, which we've discussed both those bands. Both had their stuff featured on the channel. In 2011, Complex Media Network's music website, Consequence of Sound, honored White Pony on a List 'em Carefully installment dedicated to writer David Buchanan's top 13 metal records released between 2000 and 2010. In 2017, Rolling Stone ranked White Pony as the 66th on their list of the 100 greatest metal albums of all time. In 2019, The Guardian ranked it 29th on the list of the 100 best albums of the 21st century. In 2020, it was named one of the 20 best albums of 2000 by Metal Hammer magazine. It is Deftones' highest selling album to date, being certified 2 times platinum by the RIAA on July 3rd, 2025. The album was also certified platinum in Australia and gold in Canada, New Zealand, and the UK. The album received a 20th anniversary reissue package with Black Stallion, a companion remix album of The White Pony, in December of 2020. This track, Passenger, is the 9th track on the album. Keenan reflected on working on this track with the Deftones in a 2020 Revolver interview. I don't recall whether I showed up with completed lyrics or not. Like I said, it's been a while. But in this visit, I was able to assume the role that I've become accustomed to. Most pieces in place. Now I navigate the puzzle in front of me. I love that track. Despite never being released as a single, Passenger became one of the most popular songs on White Pony. It has over 140 million streams on Spotify at the time of publication, making it the third most listened to track on the album after Change in the House of Flies and their track Digital Bath. All right, let's get into these lyrics. Here I lay, still and breathless, just like always. Still I want some more. Mirrors, sideways, who cares what's behind? Just like always, still your passenger. The chrome buttons, buckle, and leather surfaces, these and other lucky witnesses. Now, to calm me, this time won't you please drive faster? Roll the windows down, this cool night air is curious. Let the whole world look in. Who cares who sees anything? I'm your passenger. I'm your passenger. Drop these down, then put them on me. Nice cool seats there to cushion your knees. Now, to calm me, take me round again. Don't pull over. This time, won't you please drive faster? Roll the windows down. This cool night air is curious. Let the whole world look in. Who cares who sees what tonight? Roll these misty windows down to catch my breath, and then go and go and go. Just drive me home and back again. Here I lay, just like always. Don't let me go, 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 go. Take me to the edge. All right, so those are the lyrics. So while Chino Moreno's symbolic lyrics are always kind of freely up for interpretation or whatever, there are 3 common meanings to this track, or that are posited. Go ahead, let me hear yours. I'll see if it's on the list.
Well, Jesus, vampires.
Oddly,
I was just going to say I didn't catch enough of the lyrics to even have an idea about meaning. You can get a sort of tone or impression just from not even hearing the words, but the way they're formed. And I thought what struck me was it's almost like when you think of passenger, you think of the passenger, Mr. Pop. And it's interesting there how there's one bit where you're reading out there. There's, it's I'm the passenger. I stay under glass, and I look through my window so bright. And there he's talking about rolling down the windows, and there's also an engagement, like the city excites or whatever as they're in this car and driving through. And Iggy Pop's a little bit removed, but then whether he's the passenger of a Bowie or not, this one just seems a bit more engaged. And it's just interesting, the two differences, because they're both, about passenger. I guess you give up your authority to somebody else, literally,
Exactly.
and also gets figuratively as well.
Yeah, and that is one of the themes. I mean, sort of this symbolically talking about, putting your life in someone else's hands, and just being kind of along for the ride. Now, another prevailing theory about the song or interpretation is that it's just about sexual activity in a car. The breathiness and the like chrome buttons, buckles, and leather surfaces, these and other lucky witnesses. Like, what are they witnessing? These inanimate objects inside the car. That's like one of the lyrics. Go ahead.
So yeah, it just reminded me then when you said that again. When you were reading that out, I just started thinking about Ballard's Crash. That sort of the loving detail about the cars and stuff just
Yeah.
reminded me of that sort of fetish
Yeah.
from Crash. I don't know if you've read the book, but yeah, it's
No,
interesting.
but that's interesting. Yeah. Well, this is a quote from Chino, when it came to like the meaning of the song. When I did the song with Maynard from Tool, I told him I wanted to create a scenario of being in a car and being taken for a drive when you don't really know what's going on. I wanted him to create a lot of imagery. He wrote a majority of the lyrics and left blanks for me to fill in. It seems like you're being held captive while also enjoying what's going on. And like, for what it's worth, I think he wasn't divulging everything about this song, because for me it's all of this. It's using one as a metaphor for the other, like this idea of like being someone's like um willing but powerless passenger can sometimes be like a sexual tryst with someone who there's this attraction, a physical attraction to, but you've only just met or something like that, like a passionate one night stand or something like that. This idea of, wantonly throwing yourself into the arms of practically a stranger, all because of this base primordial physical, attraction. I get that from this, and the feeling of it, and let the whole world look in, who cares who sees, this, and you're not even shamed by it. So I don't know, there's multiple things going on here, but I like to think it's kind of all of it in one. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was thinking this when you were reading out the lyrics. I was thinking, could it be other modes of transport? Um, but I'm guessing the American love story with the automobile, it has to be the car. But
Right.
there's other scenarios where you put your hands in the life of somebody else. So in this country, they're called lollipop ladies. Um, it wouldn't quite have the same frisson if the song was about, crossing the road under the guidance of a woman dressed in fluorescent yellow with a giant lollipop sign. I would love to hear that though, being done
Yeah,
by
me too.
Maynard and the Deftones. That would be a hell of a song. With the sexual, frisson of
Yeah.
the Silver Surfer.
And with lollipop in the title, you could already
Yeah, yeah,
draw
yeah,
sexual correlations there.
yeah, yeah.
So
Perhaps not. Perhaps not.
yeah, maybe avoid that one. Oh man. Well, I do appreciate you being a sport and giving this one a go, and actually
Yeah, no
finding
problem.
plenty about it that's redeeming enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even if it isn't your daily cup of tea. I'm glad you gave it a go and you found in it some things that I totally agree with you about. Like Abe Cunningham's drumming is crazy, and the things that they do with texture in this is really interesting and haunting and builds tension like we've talked about and stuff. So yeah, man, thanks for giving this a spin, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, that was so.
Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of this track Passenger featuring Maynard James Keenan by the Deftones. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. And if you have any suggestions of songs that we should check out, please feel free to drop them down in the comments field below. We will add them to the list if both of us are not, or at least if one of us, I should say, is not familiar with the track, we'll add it to the list. Also, like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things. It does help us here at the channel, and we really do appreciate it, so thank you. All that out of the way, hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.